I'm Jo Meacock, the Curator of British Art at Glasgow Museums, and during the lockdown I've been doing a bit of research on some of the women in paintings in our collection who we know very little about, as they're only identified in terms of their relationships to their husbands. And Glasgow Boy John Lavery's 1903 portrait of Mrs R.B. Cunninghame Graham is a case in point. And it's really quite inappropriate that this portrait should be called Mrs R.B. Cunninghame Graham, as the sitter was never known by this name during her lifetime, and in fact she was anything but a professional wife. Gabrielle de la Balmondière was actually a very glamorous and strong-willed personality, an artist, writer, poet and musician. Her actual name was Caroline Stansfield Horsfall, the daughter of a Yorkshire doctor. But rebelling against her rather strict evangelical upbringing, she'd converted to Roman Catholicism and ran away to join the theatre. And she apparently met her husband, the Scottish aristocrat, writer, politician and adventurer, Robert Bontine Cunninghame Graham, in Paris, where his horse had nearly knocked her over. And flustered, he apologised in Spanish. He was known as Don Roberto, he was part Spanish, and he'd been working as a cattle rancher in Argentina. She responded in Spanish, and they fell in love. They married in 1878, and she pretended her name was Gabrielle de la Balmondière, and that she'd been born in Chile to a French father and Spanish mother, in order to appease the Cunninghame Graham social circle. And she maintained this pseudonym throughout the rest of her life. After the couple's marriage, they travelled in Europe and America and settled for a while in Texas, where they bought a cattle ranch. But they returned to Britain in 1883 when Cunninghame Graham's father died. In Britain, de la Balmondière moved in rather Bohemian circles. She was friends with Oscar Wilde, with Yeats and Engels. She was a contributor to the Yellow Book. She gave lectures on mysticism and wrote a number of books, and the most famous of which is A Life of St Teresa of Avila. A good businesswoman, she managed the family estate at Gartmore in Stirlingshire, although in the end it couldn't be saved. Cunninghame Graham's father had left too many debts and it had to be sold in 1901. When Lavery painted this portrait of her, her health was already compromised by heavy smoking. And although still looking very glamorous, you can see that she has her feet up on a footstool and she holds a walking cane, which may not just be an elegant accessory. She died 3 years later in the south of France on her way home to Scotland after a study trip in Spain. She was only 48, although she wouldn't have wanted this known, as she consistently lied about her age throughout her life, even on her marriage certificate. And following her wishes, she was buried in the ruined priory on the Isle of Inchmahome on the Lake of Monteith, near the family's Gartmore estate. Cunninghame Graham gifted this portrait to Glasgow Museums in 1916 to join his portrait by Lavery, which had been purchased by the city in 1906.